It is, I can't believe it's November 20th. We're reading Ayelet Tsabari's Songs for the Brokenhearted. Um, full disclosure, I really, really love the book. I talked to somebody in the short story book group and I said we had read it. She goes, I read it, I didn't like it. And I said, "Well, why didn't you like it?" And she said there were a lot of terms and names that she didn't understand. So I thought I would start off with, I gave you a couple vocabulary words in in the invite to this. But I'm looking in the book now. Um, I don't I don't think she had it. I mean, she is Israeli. There's a lot of Hebrew in there. There's a lot of and there's a lot that she doesn't explain. So any questions off the bat?
No,
Uh,
I thought the context made it understandable without even knowing what it was.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The one that I put in the invite to this, Ma'abarot, I mean, they were infamously very hard on people who made Aliyah and especially Mizrahi. And they were they were second class citizens. There's no two ways about that. And the Ethiopians also second class citizens. You know, the Ashkenazi had the power in the government. They had the power, full stop. And I think that I knew about the Yemeni boy, not boys, it was boy in this in the book, but I knew about the Yemeni children being stolen, but I didn't know all about that. And I totally, completely think that that happened. They, snatched those kids, whether they gave them to Holocaust survivors or Ashkenazi. And I'm sure they went after the light ones. And not unlike in America, light blacks have an easier time than dark blacks. And so, unfortunately, we see that being copied in Israel. Um, so, um, I I just loved it. I thought it's really well written. Let me I show you Ayala. We'll talk a little bit about her. Um, she has lived in Israel and she left Israel and she's a beautiful Yemeni, with the curls. I mean, you can well, here she is. You can definitely picture her. Um, and I'm going to have to do some more research. I wonder how much of this is her story. It's just,
Oh, she's beautiful.
yeah, she's really beautiful. She's really, really beautiful. And um, I'm not, oh, see, I wonder if that's her husband. No.
No.
So anyway, she she has written a lot of books because she lived in Canada. Her English is very, very good. Oh, wait, here's here's her husband. Oh, I found her husband. Get it. He's also very
Oh,
cute.
did she, if this is the right book, I didn't see a translator. Did she translate it herself?
Oh, I
No,
bet
she
she
wrote-
did because I don't see a translator
yeah,
either.
she
Wait,
said she
Alice,
wrote-
wait,
yeah,
before Alice goes, here's
right.
her husband. And
Yeah. Yeah, I listened to this podcast about her during the week that
Yeah.
and she said she had written it in English and she was translating it into Hebrew and now it was harder to translate it into Hebrew.
Oh, wow.
It's
I
interesting.
sure read that.
Yeah.
Alice, go ahead.
Yeah, a couple things. One is I was very fortunate. I've met her in person.
Oh,
Oh,
So, and I think a lot of it was a long time ago, and I don't remember her whole story, but I do have to say, she lived in Canada for many years,
mm-hmm.
and she was married, and she got divorced,
Mm.
and then she moved back to Israel with a child. She had a child. So I think, not all of it, but I think some of it is. And also, I think the you know, she wrote, the reason I got to meet her is I was part of, I was in a co-chair of a Ort luncheon where we talked about her short stories, The Best Place on Earth. And if any of you like this book, I would highly recommend it. And those were very autobiographical. It talks about living in Canada, and it talks about kind of yearning to go back to Israel. And she has one character whose father is a poet. Isn't that in this, or a writer? Isn't that in this story?
Yeah,
In this
yeah,
book? Yeah. So I think a lot of it is autobiographical.
yeah. I mean, I thought, so this is a little bit about her. She was born in Israel into a large family of Yemeni descent. She studied at the Simon Fraser University Writers Studio, University of Gulf, MFA. And The Best Place on Earth was a recipient of the 2015 Sammy Rohr Prize. She has other honors. Her second book, The Art of Leaving, won the Canadian Jewish Literary Award for memoir and was a finalist for other awards. This is her debut novel, Songs for the Brokenhearted, came out in 2024. Okay, so yeah, so that's what we know about her. Merle, wait, I'll unmute you. Go ahead.
Okay, I also met her in 2019. She came to Chicago and she was at the Standard Club promoting her book, The Art of Leaving. And that was her memoir. That was a series of essays. And so many of the themes were the same as in this book, being an outsider as a Yemeni in Israel and wanting to leave. And her father died when she was 9 years old. And I talked to her about this because my father also died when I was 9 years old. And, that really changed her life because everywhere she traveled, she felt like it wasn't home, no matter where it was, because her father had made her feel like she was at home. And she also talked about the recipes from her culture. And the one that she gave was the zhug, which they also called bispas, which was like a condiment. It's kind of like Texas caviar. She gave the whole recipe to her audience, and she was so nice. And it was really a pleasure to meet her in 2019.
Yeah,
The same themes, just the same themes, except this is a fictional work.
right. I think that so we'll start in talking. So first of all, her PhD is about Ashkenazi writers. And I think at the end she realizes that it doesn't fit her, and that Iggy and all her other her husband was Ashkenazi. Why thoughts on that, or how she pursued that? I mean, I know that it's all right. In what ways does a book explore the meaning of home? And let's go. Which story or character arc surprised you the most, and why? Raina?
I'm thinking the affair that her mother had.
Yeah.
That surprised me.
Well, wait a minute. So, that's with Jacob.
Yeah.
But when they met as kids, they didn't have they kissed. Is that an affair?
No.
One kiss.
One kiss. So, and then her husband is dead. His wife is alive, but
Right.
has, terrible dementia. Is that an affair? Were you surprised that he was the guy in the back shed?
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
So,
Good,
yeah.
good literary device. Lynn.
So I think the character that surprised me the most was the aunt, who was really the first wife, who
Hmm.
never really tell anything about it. Even after the mother died, you would have thought that she would have come forth and said, "Look, this is what went on in your life when you were growing up." But maybe she was waiting for her to come to it herself. I don't know, but that surprised me that the aunt, who she was very close to, she said, that she really hadn't really told her the truth about their lives.
So in the having two wives was predominant in their culture.
Mhm.
When in for Ashkenazi Jews, there was an edict in the Middle Ages where it came from the Talmud. You have to live dina machuta dina, that you have to live the life of the land. And they said, okay, only one wife. But in Yemen, you could have more than one wife. And then when they got to Israel, they grandmothered them in or whatever. But it was interesting that, he thought he had to marry someone else so he could have children, and that the aunt, the first wife was the good cook. And I mean, just those little details was, and how she had caught him, coming out of her, that she lived in the back. I thought that whole thing was absolutely fascinating. Sue.
Um, well, you're asked who surprised us. And to me, the ending of this book was kind of a surprise. And the near
Yeah.
NIR, he surprised me, and especially at the end. So, and I kind of enjoyed that kind of romance in their heads that didn't seem to really take shape.
I also really like that.
Yeah.
I think that it ended and they're going to date and they're both
Right.
Yemeni. He
Mhm.
wasn't just, a shopkeep, he
Right.
went to law school. He was smart. He could translate her mother's songs, the songs for the brokenhearted. I mean,
Right.
again, everything tied back into one another, and that was fascinating. But, at the beginning, I'm thinking, is she gonna, get back with Iggy? And, no. And is she, what's
And
gonna, or go back to the husband in the United States? Sue, go ahead.
I agree with you, Vanessa. I loved this book.
Yeah.
And I had read it so long ago that I had to kind of read it again and go through. I mean,
Yeah.
I skipped through things, but I did read it more than once.
Yeah. I mean, it was just, yeah. I, and I think that, uh, just, thinking of her saga and the whole thing of not fitting in. Uh, I have a cousin who lives in Beersheba. She moved from Boston. When she comes back to America, she's, the Israeli in America. But when she's in Israel, and she happens to have it's Arthur's cousin, a very, very heavy American accent in Hebrew, which even I can hear. And it harkens back, I remember, you know, friends of mine who's, if their parents were immigrants and they had that accent and they were embarrassed. And, it's like the reverse in Israel. She's got the American accent. And she said when she gets really mad, she's got three boys. She yells at them in English because she wants to make sure that they're understanding everything. Lynn.
I think one reason that we like this book so well is because this character made such a progression throughout the whole book in her life. I mean, you heard about her background, you heard about her past, and then you saw what she went through and how cathartic it was for her having her mother die. And then it was a great character development, bottom line. And I think
Yeah.
that was one thing that made it so much more interesting than a lot of other books that we read.
Yeah. Evie.
not to digress too much, but I just think it's so interesting that we're discussing this back to Rabbi Buchdahl's
Oh,
discussion yesterday, which, by the way, just let me just say that I just downloaded it yesterday on Audible, and I recommend it on Audible because you get her chanting in it, which I think is a wonderful addition.
Yes, I second that.
okay.
But
Actually, I was also on that JBC. It was a podcast. They did not record it because Angela wouldn't let them. So we can't get it back. But I think we should probably read it. It sounds like a great book. Is the moral of the story. Evie, please finish.
yeah, just the notion of feeling like an outsider. And I think so many of us, wherever we are, can feel like an outsider if we allow us to, whether even in the small group, where if you're the newest one coming in, if you're coming from a different congregation, if you're coming from a different version of Judaism. I mean, I just think that so many of us, that's something that maybe we all have in common, the idea of feeling an outsider and recognizing it and saying, okay, that's part of it, and maybe that's okay too. Because I don't even know what a non-outsider, and getting back to this kind of a story, I remember many, many years ago, I was trying to get in touch with a friend that I had in day school, Rivka, who moved to Jerusalem right after graduating college. And when I got in touch with her father, may he rest in peace, he told me that he didn't say he was disappointed, didn't use those words, but the fact that she fell in love with somebody from one of the Yemenite countries, and he was not very happy about that. But I was startled to hear this kind of prejudice among somebody who, in my mind, was revered. He was president of the College of Jewish Studies, which is why they had moved here and so forth. So to hear that kind of prejudice in our own realm, I was probably naive at the time, but just, what is an outsider, and who do we judge in some other way?
We read The Beauty Queen of Jerusalem. And, that was the reverse. It was, this Ashkenazi trying to get into a, Sephardic family. And, they didn't want that. And we see those prejudices just throughout time. And the latest newcomer who comes into the country is the one who's at the bottom of the pile. So taking America, the Sephardim were the first here. Emma Lazarus, whose poem is on the New Colossus on the bottom of the Empire. Thank you, Statue of Liberty. That was a brain fart. Thank you, Alice. It was at least I was in New York, for God's sakes. Anyway, they were hoity-toity Sephardic, and then the Germans came. And we all know the Germans were hoity-toity, and then the Russians came. And, every group looks down on the group that's coming in, and the same in Israel. There's been a lot I think I read in the New York Times, there was all of these Jews in Arab states were displaced after 48. The Arabs didn't want them there. Israel said, we need you, we want you. And the same cousin with the American Hebrew accent, she's married to a Moroccan Jew. And when the Moroccans came, again, brown skin, before they went in the Ma'abarot, they cleaned them with some type of, I want to say it was like Agent Orange to get the lice off, and a lot of them got cancer. I mean, and this is like in our lifetime. Her husband, who is the youngest, there's a bazillion people, a bazillion kids in his family, but a couple of them had brain cancer, and it's directly linked to what Israel did to them. I don't think that Israel did that intentionally, but I also think that Israel did not spray Ashkenazi Olim, people making Aliyah, just, the people from, who are brown who are coming in. And it's very hard to take. As you look at the political scene, Bye, Sandy. Wait. I'm just going to talk 1 second, and then I'll get to you. You can see that politically, the Mizrahi, the Sfardim were all disenfranchised. Menachem Begin reached out to them, and Benjamin Netanyahu. They love him, and that is a part of his power. I'm going to unmute you, Sandy. Go ahead.
I know I've said it before, but my daughter married a Sephardic Jew, and his mother never let me forget Biglau Kol Bayotza Biglau HaAshkenazim.
Okay.
Everything that was wrong in
All
Israel
the
was
problems.
because
Yeah.
of the
Yeah.
Ashkenazim.
Yeah.
She was from Iran and her husband was from Turkey, and she felt so superior to everybody.
Yeah. The only thing I can say to that is I could find you, an Ashkenazi, an American, a German, unfortunately, it takes that type of personality. Maybe it's just Jewish. But there was definitely, I was saying, today I had lunch with colleagues today, and I said to them, uh, their grandson who converted to Judaism. It's a long story, but he married a Persian Jew, and I said, "Oh, that's a mixed marriage." She goes, "No, no, he converted." I said, "No, no, I I meant when a Persian and an Ashkenazi. That's just." It's like Orthodox and Reform. It's like a mixed marriage, and you have other things to talk about in the family. Merle.
I thought the mother-daughter relationship was very important and difficult and complex. And what was interesting is when your daughter finally appreciates the songs and starts singing and how it really changes her life that she starts singing. A lot of this came from Ayelet Tsabari's real life, that
Okay.
she got a grant to study the Yemeni music and
Wow.
interviewed groups of women and individuals and started recording all of this music. And so I thought it was great that she put that into the story. And in the United States, we also have a tradition of taking down the oral histories of these things. There was a movie called Songcatcher that was about recording the
Yes.
music from the
Yeah.
Appalachians. And then
Yeah.
there was another called American Epic that was a series about getting the music recorded. So I thought that was very, very authentic because it was authentic. So it was
Yes.
good.
Andy.
I second what Merle just said and what everyone has said. In the beginning, Vanessa, you had asked, why did the daughter go for Ashkenazi men?
Yep.
And I think we've kind of come to that point.
Yeah.
When she was growing up, she was embarrassed by her mother and by her mother singing, and she would put on, her sister reminded her, put on more contemporary music to drown her out. I think it was a way for her to try and assimilate or to marry up or date up and sort of look back at her culture. But as she matured, she embraced it a little more.
Leanne, I'll unmute you. Go ahead.
Yeah, the relationship between the mother and the daughter was the saddest part for me because I thought, I understand as a young girl, first of all, she was um so connected and so close with her father. And then when he died, she felt misplaced. There was even where she mentioned, I wish it was my mother who wasn't here anymore instead of my father. And then she was sent away. But the sad part for me was she discovered all of these wonderful things about her mother and everything that her mother did and who she was and everything she went through. But her mother's gone. And sometimes you read something where that discovery is happening, but the people are still there and they can reconcile, they can reconnect. So that was so sad for me that I think it was so good that Zohara, got to that place. But there was never any, well, I guess the mom in later years when she was traveling and doing everything, they were closer. But That was a sad piece. And the other comment I wanted to make is,
It was poignant. I
Mhm.
mean, it was
Yeah.
just heartbreakingly, yeah. Go
yeah,
ahead, Leanne.
when we were talking about, different ethnicities and everything, because there's a mention early on in the book that Zohara says, we're, in Israel, everybody talked about, everybody's ethnicity. She said this would never fly in New York, where people just don't. I mean, I think people do have a tendency to do that. Um, but it was so prevalent where she came from, that this person was this and this person was this. And when you're living in a situation where it's just, I don't know, more acceptable, she made a, she
So,
recognized that it was so
yeah,
different where she was
I
living.
actually think that that's just part of Israeli culture.
Mhm.
I think I tell this story all the time. When I hired teachers, I'd always, have a couple of Israelis, and a lot of them were Hebrew teachers. And they would come up and they would ask one another, "How much are you making? How much are you making?" And I had a very delicate salary range, and I'm trying to make everybody happy. But in Israel, you go up to someone and say, "What's your salary?" That's very commonplace, and we would never do that I would say to anyone on the Zoom, "How much did you make? How much did your husband make?" And then I finally had one Israeli, Marina, and I said, "Listen, I'm giving you a raise, but don't go telling everyone, you're stirring the pot. You're making it very hard for me." And that's a cultural thing.
Vanessa,
Yes,
you know
Anna.
that every time you meet another couple, especially when you're young couples, the first question they ask you is, how many meters is your apartment? They judge you right away by how many meters your apartment is.
Yeah. So that part of that's cultural. Alice.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think she, because she went to the school, where it was almost all Ashkenazi
Yep. Schneider.
people, she got like, oh, is this what I'm supposed to aspire to? And also, I think her mother said to her when she sent her off there that this is what your father wanted. Now,
Mhm.
I don't know if that was true, but I don't know, since she was so close to her father and loved him so much, maybe she started getting the feeling like, oh, maybe this is the way I should go. Maybe this is how I'm going to assimilate, or this is how I'm going to be comfortable in Israel.
Yeah. Merle.
I thought she felt abandoned because her brothers were also accepted to that school, but the father said, "No, I want the boys to stay home." So that was just part of the whole condition that she was in, of feeling abandoned by her family and just feeling like an outsider. But she did get kind of snooty while she was at the
Yeah.
private school. I think it did give her a little confidence to
Yeah.
be there.
Yeah. And I thought again it was very believable, the whole story around they all thought she was a cleaning lady, and you know um um especially with the Arabic and the Hebrew. What role does Hebrew, Arabic, and code switching play in the stories? How does language become a marker of identity and belonging? And code switching is if this is an all Jewish group and we all have a way of talking. If I was doing an interfaith group and there were some non-Jews here, I may not say, I may not tell the same anecdotes. It's code switching. You see it a lot with blacks, the way they talk to one another and how they talk when they're in a group with white people. So I do think Zohara, was code switching when she was with her Yemeni friends and when she wasn't. So I think that was
Well, and isn't that why she ended up feeling so comfortable with Near? She kind of like wasn't
Yeah.
having to maybe be something she really wasn't.
Yeah.
She
Yeah.
could be more authentic.
Yes. I was really pulling for him at the end. At the beginning, I thought, but he definitely he grew on me, and we found out more about him, and he was so took care of her and was compassionate, and uh, it. I just can't imagine. I keep thinking about what Leanne said, that here she'd had this strained relationship with her mom, and now she's living in the house. She has to clean it. She knows her mom was this, really stringent cleaner. Um, so that also was very poignant. What about the Yoni storyline?
Oh,
That was the sister's boy. We haven't talked about the sister either.
yeah.
Um,
Well, you can see how easily, I'm sorry to interrupt, how easily, young men are very impressionable. And it was a very turbulent time. Not everybody was, supporting the peace process. And what struck me is how similar the climate is now, that history just keeps repeating itself.
yeah. I saw that where that was heading, because I would imagine we all did. We all know that Rabin was assassinated. We know the timeline. And uh yeah, is it still the same? I don't know if the Mizrahi and Sephardi, if they're still disenfranchised. And of course, now the Haredi are becoming more powerful, and they sit on the cabinet. The Smotrich and Ben Gvir are really evil. I think that's Vanessa speaking. Evil personalities. Yeah, racist. And I yeah, the the rabbis were at a meeting with Lonnie Nassiter, who's the head of JUF. His father, he took over for his father. But that's another discussion for another day. And Yechiel Pupko, again, another discussion for another day. But they were blaming what's happening in Israel. No, they blamed October 7th on the democracy, protests. And I said, did no Reform rabbi stand up and say, what are you talking about? And I don't think they did. And it's, a lot has happened since October 7th that has really drawn a wedge in the American Jewish community, Israel, Jews all over the world. And it's very, very, very hard to look and to see that. Paula.
Well, when you hear the outside world say that Israel is racist and is committing genocide and the things that we don't want to hear, and now I read about this discrimination against Jews of Yemen, it doesn't feel good to hear this.
No, no,
not at all.
no.
Mhm.
You know, we hope that Israel is Or Lagoyim, a light unto the nations, and Goyim means nations. And we have used it pejoratively in our speech, and it's not a polite thing. It comes from the Yiddish, but it means nations. So when we hear Israel falling down, it's for me, it's particularly painful. Merle.
Absolutely.
Well, we know that in our country, young men are radicalized online. But this boy, just met somebody who kind of flattered him and pulled him in. So you get a sense of how people can get radicalized just by a very simple conversation.
Yeah. Scott Galloway was on, who's Jewish, was on Bill Maher, who I love him, but he was talking about radicalizing young men, and Bill Maher goes, are we making a big deal about this? And I don't remember the statistics, but 4 to 5 young men, are suicide, don't have a job. I mean, he just rattled one after another of where young men and men are today in the United States. So it's I think that's a frightening thing.
I didn't realize he was Jewish. I've seen him interviewed a few times. So
Yeah, I didn't realize that either.
Yeah.
Well, I thought it was interesting what you were just saying. I think Merle said something about how, Yoni gradually got, radicalized, I think mostly by Baruch, that he was friendly with. But he also, Baruch. Thank you.
It's like Baruch.
But anyways, what I was going to say is, I thought that Ayelet Tsabari did a good job of showing that there can be subtle differences between what I'm aiming at is that, he had a crush on that girl, but she wouldn't go as far as Baruch and Yoni wanted to go. And I thought that was a good way of showing, you can have these different feelings, but you don't necessarily have to be radicalized.
Right. Act on them.
Yes.
Sue.
So in reading this book through the whole thing, I had to keep thinking about what's going on in this country today.
Amen.
And I think this book is a lesson for all of us. And it just kept reminding me, when you think about the discrimination and what's going on here today.
Yeah.
The same thing.
Yeah.
Only actually here now it's worse.
Yeah. It's very troubling. I think, again, Jews of any age, but Jews of our age, to watch ICE, they're you can't see their face. It just reminds me of Nazi stormtroopers, grabbing people, and it's an absolutely frightening thought. We have been collecting at Macomb rice, beans, and oil and the SNAP program has been, it's back, but there are people who are afraid to go to the store. There are people who are afraid to leave their house. And you can't poo-poo that, because then, and in Chicago, I mean, every day there's another incident.
The thing is that the darker a person's skin is, the more trouble they're in.
Yeah.
Yes.
And they're definitely looking at Hispanics.
Yes.
And anybody who looks the slight bit Hispanic gets taken off the street.
Exactly. And it's all this numbers game. And anyway, wait, where's Alice? Alice, we're not talking
No,
about...
it's okay. No, it's okay. It's okay. No, I was going to say, Sue, I think that's why this book resonates with everybody, because it's so universal.
Mhm.
We can relate to it, right?
That's
It's even though it's mostly about Israel. Well, it's not so far from home.
Evie.
Sometimes we also, think about what Sue said, and I can certainly relate to that, but sometimes we also jump to conclusions. I'll just share an anecdote that happened last week. I was together with another friend. We were taking a mutual friend out to lunch, and we decided to go to, after going back and forth, we decided to go to Isaac and Moshe. So my friend, when I pull up, my friend is already outside in her car, and I could see she's trying to call me or whatever. There are no cars, and there's a sign, a handwritten sign, said closed. We'll see you tomorrow. So all three of us had the same thought. Oh my God, with the helicopters being over by further north and so on and so forth, did something happen? Okay. So I go home and I'm Googling it, and I'm going to call them. And all of a sudden I look, sure enough, they're closed on Fridays. Well, it was Friday.
Wow.
I mean, I knew that what was confusing was when they said, see you tomorrow, being Saturday. And we all knew that they open like in the evening after Shabbat,
Yeah.
So maybe now 5:30, 6 o'clock, they could open. But here we all have the same thought that, there was a problem, that somebody came in and whatever and so forth. And, until, if we would have read the whole sign, that might have been different because it did say, close on Fridays. But, your mind just kind of goes that way, especially when you're in an environment where you see people that are not quite as white as you think you are or something.
It's very disturbing. Let's talk about how does the nonlinear structure influence your understanding of characters' growth or decline? And did anyone not like the nonlinear?
I didn't like it at the beginning.
Yeah, I
Okay.
didn't either. I wanted to know what was going to go on with Jacob. So like I went a chapter ahead because I was so embroiled in that story that I wanted to know what was going to happen.
Yeah.
But this happens in a lot of books
Mhm.
and a lot of stories. They keep jumping back and forth.
Mhm.
And sometimes you got to get your mind into it because it takes a while till you can figure out exactly where this is
What's going
going.
on now? Yeah.
I like to listen and read the book. So when you listen, the males were voiced by a man. And I'll have to look. I think it was her brother or something. And so the pronunciation of the Hebrew was great because the Heaven and Earth grocery store, I listened to part of that and they just butchered the Hebrew and I couldn't stand it. Every time they said something, I would correct them. Which of course I did. But I think, and I agree, Sue, a lot of books do this, but it's kind of a recent phenomena. I don't remember growing up with a back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And I sat down next to somebody once, as I was getting my nails done, and she said, we were talking about a book. She goes, I can't stand it. It's going back and forth. I said, listen, I read a lot of books. I'll give you some books that are linear. I said, that's what you need. You don't like the non-linear back and forth. Paula.
I agree with you. In general, I do not like this format, but this one was so central to the story to have the background of the camp, to have the background of the loss of the child, the disappearance of the child. So in this case, it didn't bother me very much like it usually does. I think she held on it very well.
The other thing that I kept thinking in 2025, and I mean, this was written in 2024, but with, if that child was still alive or what happened is like DNA. It's easier to find out your family history if something happened, if you have, and, I just wonder if any families have ever been reunited in Israel. I mean, especially in this Yemeni case, because what was that, the Danny Shapiro book?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. We remember that book. So this the author, and you find out fairly quickly who's blonde hair and blue eyed and is in a very Semitic looking Jewish family, finds out that she has a different father. So it's a memoir, right? That's nonfiction, that book.
Yes, yeah.
And she has some other books out now as well. So that's what I kept thinking, don't they, there's got to be some type of database. There has to be, there's just so much available to us now that how can we not take advantage of that? So
So Vanessa, to your knowledge, children who maybe dark-skinned children who are living with lighter-skinned Jewish families never questioned where they came from?
Well, so first of all, I believe, and I think this is anecdotal. I think they tried to take light-skinned kids. That's number one.
Uh,
And if they were super dark skinned, they're like, we'll pass on that. And I don't know. I just know that the Mizrahi and Sephardi were second class, and Ethiopian were second class citizens and treated very, very poorly. And were welcomed wholeheartedly by Likud, which is the right-wing party in Israel, and given political power, and also for the most part, also with the Haredi, their birth rate is triple what, secular Israelis are. So, and eventually, when I first started, studying Israel and teaching Israel, I'd say 80% um, secular and 20%, but 20% are religious. Eventually, it's just going to tip because of the birth rate, and I, and I also think that the secular Jews, the lefty secular Jews, some of them are leaving the country. I'm studying Hebrew with a Hebrew teacher. He lives in Haifa. And first he was moving to Greece, but now he's moving to Portugal because the Sephardi descent, and you can get a passport, and he wants to leave Israel. And I'm so sad. I'm just sad. I'm sad that, he can't take what's happening there. And I'm sad that, and a lot of young Israelis are doing that. And a lot of young Israelis have more than one passport. And I think I've shared with you all before that my son-in-law, his grandparents got reparations from Germany, and he was eligible for German citizenship. He took it, and my grandchildren, they're going to get them German citizenship. And if you had told me that 10, 15 years ago, I'd be like, what? But now I think it's a good idea.
Yeah.
And that shows what's happening here in the United States.
Yeah.
That, is a direct effect of what's happening here. So, yeah, it's sad. Which character did you most empathize with, even if you didn't agree with their choices? Oh, and think about that. But I want to talk about Lizzie, who had a very different
Yeah.
relationship with the father, and then probably married her father with an abusive first husband, and she was, anyway, probably more like a mother to Zohara.
Yeah.
But which
What's the
character
age
did you?
difference?
I'm sorry, what?
What was the age difference?
It was,
Oh, a lot.
It
I
was a
want to say
lot.
10
yeah,
years.
at least 10 years.
Yeah. And Lizzie's kids, I mean, Yoni is 18. He's going to go in the army. Now she probably got married early and so on and so forth, but that's a big age difference. And of course, Zohara wasn't, she was divorced, yada yada yada. I also think that young women like Zohara, make conscious choices of not having, they want a career, and they, having a child affects your career and what you have to do and your lifestyle with your husband, and or not your single lifestyle. So yeah. I think that's another reason why secular Israelis, don't have um, all those children. Merle?
I thought Zohara's decision at the end was something that a lot of young people could relate to, that she wanted to change her dissertation topic, and she wanted to write about feminist voices in Israeli poetry and all the music. And I thought that was wonderful that she actually had the courage to do that, because she wasn't happy in school and thinking about maybe dropping out even, and then came up with this wonderful idea so that she could follow through with the songs. And I thought
Here.
people could relate to that.
Yeah. Yeah. Paula?
Well, I think her transition came from being ashamed of her mother to really wishing she had known more about her mother, and then
Mhm.
appreciating,
Mhm.
wholeheartedly who her mother was.
Mhm.
So it was really just a beautiful, beautiful transition on her part, the way the author did that.
Right.
Yeah. Leanne.
It's interesting also to think about Zohara and her relationship with her mother and how things transpired, and then Yoni's relationship with his grandmother,
Yes.
and how things worked out for him. I mean, his initial reaction and his willingness to join this group was he didn't know what to do with his feelings, his anger, his sadness, his guilt. And I think it was interesting how these two main characters played out in their role because of their relationship with the same woman. I mean, Yoni actually said that he knew stories about his grandmother that nobody else knew, that
Yes.
she shared with him things that nobody else knew. I just think it's important to like think about that and not overlook that with this book, because I think
Yeah.
both of them had different relationships and then it played out in different ways. And
He knew about
ultimately,
He knew about Mr. Hassan.
Mhm.
Yaakov. Yeah.
I just
Agreed,
thought I'd bring
agreed.
it up because it stuck with me that, they really responded so differently to the same woman, and they knew her and loved her in different ways. Um,
Yeah.
and I thought that was, and it's like interesting, even the title, Songs for the Brokenhearted,
Mhm.
there's more than one person who has a
Oh,
broken
yes.
heart.
Yeah. And more than
Because,
one song, yeah.
yeah, and
Um,
just a different response.
I have Evie, Lynn, and Raina.
No.
Okay, Evie.
Yeah, I loved the relationship that we pieced together, was described in terms of later on, the grandmother and Yoni. But getting back to the question about Lizzie, was that the sister's name?
Yeah.
Never having had, unfortunately, a sibling, I could see jealousy being a real thing there, in terms of just even just to be able to do something like changing your dissertation. What a privilege that is, to be able to have the luxury to do that.
Mhm.
And her sister had a very, very different life. She was tied down. She was married young. She had the
Mhm.
day-to-day situation, with the mother, which the sister was able to escape from. Maybe not emotionally so much, but on a day-to-day basis. So I could just see their lives being so, so different. And the sister saying, where were you all this time? And really being, just kind of presenting her.
Right.
Yeah, and they kind of dug into their roles, so Hara's at the beach. I mean, all of those things played out. Lynn.
Yeah, it's interesting though how much the grandmother or the mother had an influence on both of those characters' passions. Here is O'Hara, who was really dying in what she had decided, and she finds out about her mother, and all of a sudden she's passionate about something. And
Mhm.
here is Yoni, who has to write about somebody that influences a lot of people, and he writes this thing about his grandmother, which is beautiful, and the teacher just doesn't get it.
Yeah.
But then here's his mother who's been so distanced from him and is backing him up and understanding him. So these characters are so believable. I mean,
Yeah.
writing was really good.
Here, 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 here.
Yeah.
Any last thoughts? I want to talk a little bit about next month. So our next book is The Eight Heartbreaks of Hanukkah.
I read about.
It's way, way, way lighter. I know Sue has
Mhm.
started it. This is not going to be, a Booker Prize, a Man Booker Prize winner. But we're going to meet with the author. So, I think she sounds very delightful. I have read some of her other books. I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to be able to ask this, but she wrote, no, let me see now. What were her other books? Her first book, which I think was The Matzo Ball, was very well done. And this, love, and this woman has an autoimmune disease, which I think she has. And I really love that book. And now once you have a successful book, I think publishers are on you for more books, more books, more books. And I've read some of the other books, and I don't know how I'm going to ask her, but you know, is she able to give as much time and effort to some of these books that came out so quickly? I'm not going to be able to ask that, but I can ask, are the publishing houses, is that, I'm
She
going to
works
have
with
to,
James Patterson. She writes
yeah,
with James Patterson.
right,
A book a week, yeah.
right, something like that.
Mhm.
Who just wrote, and they have these, and Reese Witherspoon now is, writing
It was
books.
good.
Some
It
of
was
them.
a good book. I read it.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Okay, okay. Um, and we talked about how Zohara was going for the Ashkenazi guys. I have been, I get into, I start reading these. I read an author and I like it, and I read a bunch. And I read Rebecca Searle's Expiration Dates. It's cute. It's a little Jewy. We can never do it for book club because it's not Jewy enough. But she keeps going for these um shagets, these non-Jews, like who are big and blonde, and I don't get it. I just don't get it. So I'm gonna have to do a little bit more research.
Wait, what
And
don't you get? What don't you get? Because I went for one. What don't
yeah,
you
yes, 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 yes.
Right, what? Yeah,
But it's
Big and
it's just
blonde. What's wrong
but
with that?
right, but you didn't write book after book saying
No.
that you went out with nerdy Jews. And all of her books, Jesse.
Got the question for you. I'm still waiting for the library to get me The Roots of the Guava Tree, Growing Up Jewish and Arab in Colombia. Have you
Oh,
read this?
I have not.
The
I
book
have
stall.
it, but I haven't read it.
Have you had the book stall? Comes out every week with a newsletter. And when I saw this, I thought, oh my God, that's such a combination. I've got to get
That's
this.
such a combination.
Yeah. So,
Let me look. Roots of the Guava.
a debut contemporary memoir about a young woman struggling to understand her identity as the daughter of a Jewish mother and a Christian Palestinian father,
Yikes. Okay.
but in Colombia.
Oh, it's nonfiction.
Yeah.
Okay. I put it on. I'm gonna look and see. Look and see for that. I know that this is a quick one, and things are very I know people have a lot of family and different holiday activities and events in December. And I'm going to Israel with the congregation, but I'll be back. I do this before, then I go. It's just over winter break. So it's great seeing everyone.
Thank you.
This-
This was great.
Thank you. Thank you. I really, Sue,
Discussion,
yeah.
as always.
Wait, did you have a
No,
comment?
I just want to say thank you and
No.
thanks to
Thanks.
everybody for
Welcome,
your
you're welcome.
Thanks.
contributions.
Just so here's my announcements that we're gonna have a regular Friday nights, and this Sunday, John Cody, who's Linda Muskin's husband, and I know everyone on this Zoom knows what WBBM News Radio is, and he was a newscaster, and he's going to share some of his reminiscence, and I think it'll be a lot of fun. And then after that, we have, we're off a week for Thanksgiving, and Andrew Poor Rancher's coming back, and he was on Zoom. Now he's going to be in person. He did the book on Alexander Hamilton, and this book is on Teddy Roosevelt.
Oh.
And it's something about the Maccabees.
Hmm.
Full disclosure, I have not read it yet. So, and then we have Jane Eisner was supposed to come in person about Carole King, but that's going to be at 10 o'clock Zoom. And she has a book on Carole King, and I've just started reading it. So
Wow.
that was the soundtrack of my my growing up years. So I'm very, excited to hear her and hear what she has to say about Carole King. So watch your Macomb at home. If you need anything, let me know. It's great seeing everybody.
Thank
you.
you.
Good Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great
Happy
Bye.
Thanksgiving,
family.
everybody.
Bye.
Bye.